Ooh, full house. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us again for the second webinar in our series. I can already see many of you from the first webinar back again. It's nice to see you again. And a warm welcome to any joining us for the first time. Very pleased to have you with us. A very big thank you again to Battersea for supporting this training series, and of course to Daniel for coming back as our speaker today. Before we begin, a few bits of housekeeping so that things run smoothly. Please keep your cameras off and your microphones muted throughout the session so that we can avoid any background noise or interruptions. We'll begin with a short introduction again, move into the main presentation and finish with about 30 minutes of your questions at the end. Those of you who joined last week are familiar with this format. If you'd like to say hello, as many of you already have, or if you want to share a thought, feel free to use the chat. For any questions for the speaker, please use the Q&A box so we don't miss anything important. We have, however, noticed that some people who are seen as guests or maybe have older versions of Teams may not have it. So if you could quickly download the latest version, that would help with the Q&A box. I will be sharing a PowerPoint with some screenshots on where the Q&A box is and also how to enable translation. We'll be using a couple of interactive polls again during the session. The polls are visible also in the chat. And once you vote, results pop up in the chat too, so you can see what others are thinking. This session is being recorded and we'll be sharing highlights later on YouTube and social media, so do keep an eye out for those later. And I think with that, I'll just share the PowerPoint with the screenshots to help you find your way around Teams before I go into the presentation. Right, I assume everyone can see. So as you can see on desktop, I will be showing mobile version in a few minutes. On the desktop, you have the chat, which is the speech bubble, where we use it to say hello, post any comments and thoughts. And in the circle, the orange circles, is the Q&A, which is specifically for questions you have for the speaker. Once you click Q&A, a box like this opens up and you can ask your questions and then you will see the answers, or we answer them live. Now, for the translation, you first need to enable closed captions. So basically the transcript, the subtitles that are automatically generated by Teams. You click on More, you go down to Language and Speech, and you choose Show Live Captions. Once the captions have enabled, you should see a banner at the bottom like this that says Captions Enabled. There'll be a cog icon that you click on. You click Language Settings. And this is where you choose what language you want to translate to. So you select Translate to, make sure that's on, and then select your language from the drop-down menu. Let me just go back to make sure everyone's seen that. So More, Language and Speech, Show Live Captions. Once they're enabled, cog, Language Settings, and then you get the settings up with the drop-down menu to select your language. Now in the mobile version, you can see you click on the dots and then you have Q&A and you have live captions. I've highlighted them in the orange boxes. And then obviously this is the second view is the Q&A, what it looks like on your mobile version. And if you click on live captions, again, you have the spoken language and the caption language. So you can decide what you want the translation to be in.
14 people, so I probably could tell you, but I don't want to. It's 14. I mean, I know that a lot of people have been asked to go. I don't know whether they all attend.
Okay. So with that, I'll go into a very brief overview introducing our data tools, and then I'll hand over to Daniel to get us started. Oh, it's not sharing. Am I still sharing? I'm still sharing.
You're not sharing, Corinza.
No, I think I just turned it off. There we go. I love the way I've made instructions for everyone else and then I can't find them. Okay, so the data tools that we all get very excited about because surveillance is so important in our work for rabies elimination. So just a few notes about why they're so great. Well, why we think they're so great is that we give them to people for free, including the they are personalized, so you choose basically what you want to track, depending on the work that you do, what areas you cover, and so on. The data belongs to you. If we do appreciate, if we get written consent, that we can use your data maybe to showcase to other organizations how these tools work, but essentially the data is yours. The GARC data tools, they work online and offline, and the outputs are automated. So you don't need to spend hours on Excel sheets and trying to extract the information into charts. It's all done automatically. At a glance, these are the different tools. So you can track rabies vaccinations, sterilizations, bite cases, education initiatives, bite cases, lots of different ones. The process is quite easy. So we need some basic information from you to start with, like how many people will be using the tools, what geographic locations you will be covering with them. We then set up a training online, a demo and training, so that you can see if the tools are what you thought they were, if you want to use them, and then we tailor them for you to use and you're ready to go. And how this helps you is live data sharing, wherever, whenever. You can also target your approaches better because you can see clusters of activity in different areas and where you need to focus on. And also it makes feedback to donors very easy. If you want to see some of the organizations already using our data tools and who are very happy with them, please go to our news and media section on our website and look for Data User of the Month articles. We highlight various organizations that already use our tools and see what they have to say. Thank you very much. I'll now hand you over for the reason you're here today to Daniel. I think I've stopped sharing and you can now share your PowerPoint.
Cool. Well, hold on. Let me before I share anything, I just want to make sure that we all, I think it's great. And thank you very much for everybody coming today and being with us and to listen to my voice again. I apologize for that, but I do hope that the information we give is actually useful. Just a very quick summary of last week's webinar. We spoke about dog body language, and the key takeaways were dogs speak volumes before they bite. So you can see them, you can read them. And we were hopefully learning to spot early warning signs, also advising on respect space and signals. And then what we're also misreading signs, which leads to unnecessary conflict. So what do we misinterpret? What did we as humans do that actually sometimes cause the conflict? So that's what we discussed last week. But this week, we are going to talk about actually dog bite prevention. And if we go and push that button, right, am I sharing? Corinne, is that it? Cool. So if we, as I say, when we start talking about dog bite prevention, last week we were speaking about dog body language, but this week we're talking about actually what are we going to do if we get attacked? How can we prevent it? What do we do if we do get bitten? And so on and so forth. So, and now I've frozen for some. Ah, there we go. Right, sorry. So we're going to talk about understanding why dogs bite. First of all, preventing dog bites, what to do if a dog approaches aggressively, what to do if a dog attacks, the safety measures during and after an attack, and then throwing in some ideas about community level prevention strategies. Now, when we are looking at this, we are not just coming along and saying this is the only way. These are ideas. These are things that have worked or potentially are going to work for your communities. And most of the stuff that I've done here, I've actually placed in some small country, some small village, and it has actually made a huge improvement on the welfare of the people as well as the animals. So let's get going. And if anybody hears a cat crying, it's not a problem. It's a very old, ancient 18-year-old cat that's walking around, and it's a little bit got a little bit of dementia, so it's okay. It's not a glitch in your matrix that you're listening to us from. So before we even start, there should be a poll that has now come up. And I want to know, looking at the picture in front of you at the present moment, what do you say? Is that dog happy, afraid, or angry? Just take a couple of seconds to quickly whip in that answer of yours, if you don't mind, if you can see the poll in front of you. So I can't see the poll where I'm looking at the moment. So hopefully you guys have filled it in very, very quickly and understand what the answer is there. I'm not going to let you know. We'll talk about it at the end. But why dogs bite? There's a number of different reasons. So fear and self-defense is, in my opinion, one of the greatest. What about predatory motor pattern? We often run down the road, get the dogs chasing us, and then we all of a sudden get bitten. And that is a simple predatory motor pattern. Dogs look, they see something, they chase something, then you've got the grab bite. Resource guarding, pain or illness, overstimulation. There's another one we want to really spend some time on because that's what we often do. Poor socialization, and then protective behavior related to maternal care or breeding. So we talk about that fear response. And for those of you that have actually done the RECs and the GARC online courses, you would have come across the 5 Fs. But let me quickly explain to you if you haven't done it. And in my opinion, if you haven't done those online courses that are free, I would really, really work on it and just go do them. They're not difficult, but I think they will actually give you a lot of information, not just on one subject, but on a lot of different subjects. There's 3, 4, 5 of them in place for you to learn some new information. But the 5 Fs, fight, flight, fiddle about, freeze, and faint. Try not to say that too fast. But from a fight point of view, we've all come across the fight and flight, but from a fight point of view, aggression, it will protect itself. The flight, it's an escape. It needs to get away. It tries to run away from you. The fiddling about is the displacement behavior. It's confused or it's stressed. That's at the moment when the dog is feeling that it needs to protect itself. The freeze, the dog just stops. Now, we often use this when we are trying to handle dogs in a vaccination campaign where we've had to use equipment on it. The dog goes into a freeze mode. The dog is stationary. We can vaccinate it easily. But we must understand that this is actually a stress-related part of the dog's survival response. And the dog does stop. It freezes. The faint is severe, severe stress. The dog shuts down and literally falls over. I unfortunately have only seen it twice, but it has happened, and it is very, very stressful for the dog when it goes through these things. But when we're looking at the fight and flight response, we can then so often look at it going to go, okay, why does the dog want to become aggressive towards us? Well, it wants to protect itself. Does the dog want to run away? Yes, if the dog does run away, you are less likely to get bitten. But we often try and see it by saying, let's block the dog. Let's try and grab the dog. That flight response will come into a fight response and you will get bitten. But let's look at these quick pictures. So if you're looking at the freeze, the dog literally, as I say, it stops. The fight, as we can all see, it's going to bite you. The faint, dog falls over. The flight, the dog runs away. But the middle one, the fiddling about, is quite an interesting concept. Is that the dog will offer you appeasing behaviors, licking lips, stropping its head, being submissive, don't hurt me. It's asking you, it's speaking to you to please just leave it alone. But what will often happen is that the dog will go from fight and flight, fiddle about, and then go back to fight and flight again. When the dog is offering you all these nice appeasing behaviors, we think it's going to be safe. And we're just going to go, that's okay, we'll go and pet the dog. But be warned, it's going to change. And depending on what you're doing, might put the dog back into a fight response, or if it sees a gap, it might run. And if not, it'll freeze. But even from freeze, it'll still go back to a fight and flight response. So please be very, very careful where if the dog just stops, it does not mean that it's changed its mood state. It still could be in a fear state. So please be very, very careful. From a predatory motor pattern, I'm going to show you a little video, and it's got the orient, the eye, the stalk, chase, grab, bite, kill, bite, dissect, and consume. That is what a predatory motor pattern actually is. From a companion animal or domestic dog point of view, we often only get to maybe a chase or a grab bite, thank goodness. And unfortunately, I have seen kill bites before, but we very, very seldom have the companion animals actually dissecting and consuming us. But we're talking predatories. Dogs are predators. And if you notice this young boy, all he's doing is literally riding a bicycle down the road when a whole group of dogs come along, and he is doing the right thing where he actually stops the bicycle and protects himself. You can see he stops, he defends himself with the bicycle, and I'm sorry, I cannot stop this video for some reason. No, it's not working. But you can see where the point is that when he does get off his bicycle, he actually places it in front of him as a defense thing. He's not trying to hit the dogs with a bicycle. He's standing still and he's keeping quiet. That is one of those most important things to see. And if we can start training this at schools or things like that to actually defend yourself, but you're not antagonizing the dog. Really, really important to prevent dog bites. What about resource guarding? You know, in my line of work and as a behaviorist, I often get called up from owners and parents to say, dog just bit. And I try and build up a bigger picture, and I find out that the toddler was walking past the dog bowl. The toddler might have bent over to try and take a few kibble out the dog bowl, and because the child doesn't actually understand, and the dog responded in a bite to protect its food. In my opinion, bad parenting. Bad ownership. Always monitor your children and your dogs when they are together. This will stop a lot of conflict. The dog, the little white dog with a big bone in it, that picture I took in Ethiopia, where throughout the year, I mean, sorry, once a year, they have a very large slaughter from a religious point of view. And instead of disposing of the carcasses or the bones and that kind of stuff, they feel it necessary to feed the street dogs. Now, there is a very, very high reward system in the amount of still protein and meat that's on those bones. And these dogs, these street dogs, become very, very obsessed with this food. And the bite instances increase. They will also have more dog fights because they're defending between the dogs, but then people walk down the street and the dog thinks that it needs to defend it from the people. And you now have more conflict. And it's simply a resource guarding. You'll also potentially find a resource guarding in beds. Even people are resourced by their dogs. I saw a dog yesterday, really nice family, but that dog wants to protect people because the people give the dog what it wants. And there's a resource guarding potential problem of why dogs bite us. What about pain? I think last week I mentioned very, very quickly that there was a dog that actually I was handling and it snapped at me and we were literally removing something from its paw. But if you look at this picture, this dog was actually hit by a train. And could you imagine the stress, the trauma, the pain that this dog was going through or had been going through while this whole incident was happening? And you cannot blame a dog for trying to bite you because that's the only way it's going to defend itself if it's in that much amount of pain. Can we train it out of it? You know, I have many dogs and I've dealt with many dogs. But if we cause pain for a dog, even if it's at a vet or, you know, we grab the dog accidentally and we pull its tail like some children do, it could be a painful situation. And the dog is going to turn around and defend itself. Does it want to bite you? No, but it's a reaction. And we need to take us into ideas of when we're dealing with animals, and especially with a lot of us that are out there, we want to help animals. So we might see a dog on the side of the road and we're going to go and pick it up. There's a reason why the dog's there. Maybe it's because it's been hit by a car. Don't just go and scoop it up. Use some protection or call in the experts. Call in animal welfare that are trained to handle a dog that is potentially a threat to human life and be able to pick up the dog correctly and safely and humanely. So please be aware that dogs do feel pain and they can respond negatively if you interfere with that pain threshold. Now, overstimulation. Before I put this video on, how many times have we been playing with our dog? And let's say it's an individual animal. And all of a sudden, you then get upset with the dog because it has jumped on you, scratched you, maybe even grabbed your hand in its mouth, all under the play banner. If you look at that and we come along and go, nope, my dog bit out of nowhere. Well, it's sometimes our own fault. We often play tug of war with our dog. In fact, I encourage it because we often train a leave command in that situation. But in this situation here, where the young lady has actually just been bitten because she's playing too roughly, she's on the ground, she is just simply a toy at that moment. The dog does not actually want to bite you. It is just a reaction. It's an accident. But we often come along and we find that a lot of clients come along and say to us, the dog bit me. And I try and break down why. And simply we've overstimulated the dog. And if we're looking at that side of it, is going to go, but it's not the dog's fault. It's just simply an accident. But if we know that it could potentially happen, that when we see our children playing outside with all of our dogs or a big group of dogs in a park, understand that this might happen. So don't blame the dog. Rather, calm the situation down, play one dog at a time. But big groups of dogs cause issues. The next thing that I often come across, in fact, I had it the other day when I tried to get a young dog into puppy classes. And the owner said, no, we don't really have to worry about it because we won't ever take this dog out of the garden. but we take our children out the garden and put them in school. Yes, we teach people and we teach children at school level of certain on the education curriculum, but it's the same concept as puppies. They need the exposure. They need that socializing skill to develop. Even if it is only for 6 weeks, we need it to happen. If you look at the dogs on the right-hand side, you've got the puppies playing, you've got the children involved, you've got adult dogs at the background. That is now a social interaction. And we do that more and more frequently. The dogs are not going to respond negatively to newbies or new dogs or new people. But if you keep the dog on the left-hand side in the poor socializing category, and now all of a sudden we introduce that dog to a new dog, it's going to react negatively. How are we going to be able to do this? I think there was a question last week, and I'm hoping that the person who asked it is still online today, about can we change an adult dog not to be aggressive or to react because it had a bad social upbringing? We call that habituation when we start training a dog to accept others. But yes, I do believe with the right input and the right training, we can get older dogs that are badly sociable accepting more social interactions. I'm not going to say that they're going to be exactly the same as young puppies and that 16-week period of their life that it's a critical socializing period. But we can certainly help that individual dog. So poor socializing is, I find, one of a very, how can I say it, poor decisions on our side, on the human side. We take care of these animals. So we need to make sure that our animals are sociable with us and our family, sociable with our other animals. And I'm talking animals. It doesn't talk just dogs. We're talking about if we show puppies chickens and cats and rabbits and horses and other dogs and birds and whatever, they are going to be more accepting of everything. But if we keep it confined and separated, you're going to have an unhappy dog that one day will become a negative conflict dog with humans. And that is what we're trying to prevent. So think about it when we get a new puppy. Puppy classes are vital for that dog's future. So here's another poll. I'm going to take 30 seconds for you guys to answer it. Should we approach a mother with puppies? We're giving the situation, you've seen a picture in front of you. Let's take that scenario. So let's not be smart and saying, well, how old are the puppies and so on and so forth. But yes or no, should we just approach a dog like that who's just had puppies? And will we be safe? So it's a yes or no answer. So hopefully everybody's answered it. And for those of you that do know behavior and maybe even veterinarians and know about different chemicals in the brain, the hormone oxytocin plays a key role in triggering maternal behaviors and protective instincts in dogs during early puppy care. Now, let's break that down. Do female dogs have oxytocin in the system all the time? The answer is actually no. But what happens is every time they lick or they feed or anything like that, the oxytocin gets spurged into their system. When they're giving birth, it's for a very short period of time, maybe 3 to 5 minutes after the puppies have come out. Then the oxytocin drops. Then it increases when they start feeding. It drops. It increases when she starts cleaning and licking. And it gets stimulated for about 4 to 5 weeks. So the question or the answer to that poll is, in my opinion, no, because you never know where the dog's mood state is at that particular time. Rather be safe than sorry. Take precautions. You might come along and go, no, but it's my dog. I know her. She's fine with me. Wada. I'm telling you now, she still has mood states. And I'm going to say to you, please be very, very careful when you're actually approaching dogs with puppies. I was with a very nice dog while she was pregnant, and she was just absolutely stunning. She was like this proud mom to be as such. She gave birth to a bunch of puppies. The owner came along and said, oh, wow, you know, so proud of her. She's had puppies, no complications, and so on and so forth. I walked in and the mother wanted to kill me. I met her a week beforehand. She was a wonderful dog, but that oxytocin is a big role player in a aggressive behavior, and it's simply over protection of her offspring. So it's not the mother. However, I've just said that. What often happens is that when we are having a dog that is breeding frequently, which we often see in free-roaming dogs, she learns, and therefore she retains that knowledge of being protective. So we'll get to a stage a little bit later about sterilizations, but if we understand that concept, is that when she's a first litter, she will definitely have oxytocin in, and that's what's causing the protectiveness. But now she has it over and over and over again. She starts learning more and more and more that she has to protect everything. I hope that makes sense. So when you see a dog, particularly a female dog, that's been bred way too many times, and she's been allowed to protect her puppies, that is becoming a learned behavior now. Just a thought. And as I said in the beginning, these are ideas. Think about it. Let's think out the box. We're here to try and prevent dog bites. If we can start thinking out the box to go, why this, why that, why the other, all of a sudden, you're starting to build up a big picture, and you can actually start educating more and more people about how to actually prevent dog bites. So staying on the breeding aspect of it. During breeding, male dogs, especially in uncontrolled environments, often become protective of the female. So it's not always the female who's just given birth, but it's actually before that process. I have, unfortunately, a good couple of years ago, I did some research on people being killed by dogs here in South Africa. And I investigated 11 separate cases. 90% of them, 10 out of the 11, were actually directly due to breeding behavior. So either the female protecting her offspring, or males protecting a female, that people have actually been killed by dogs, by groups of dogs, because they're gathered around. There's a lot of dogs around together. So I'm just saying to you that be very, very careful. You're a group of dogs. I often walk in, I look at it, and I try and identify the genders of the dogs, and I go, there's the one female, there's 5 males around her. That is a dangerous situation for anybody walking down that path. I would rather come along and go, walk around the path. Get away from the dogs. Rather take precaution. So, by preventing dog bites, avoid disturbing dogs while eating or sleeping. Now we're talking about sleeping. We're going to go, but the dog's sleeping, why would it bite us? And this is often a question that we have from young people, from kids. Now, I'm presuming that most of us online today are actually adults, but children don't really understand. The dog is sleeping. Well, why can't I just go and lie down with it? That startle effect often causes the dog to jump up and react. Remember, we talked about the 5 Fs, that fight and flight response. If you're too close to the dog, that fight response will come out and there will be a bite. If there's enough space, often the dog will jump up and run away. The flight response will happen. So please, leave dogs to eat, leave dogs to sleep. If you have to wake up a dog, that's what I often say to a lot of my clients, if you have to wake up a dog, start clapping your hands, or maybe do a little bit of a whistle from a distance. Allow the dog to come out of its deep sleep, and then be able to actually see that you are there, and then you'll be able to approach it easier. With dogs eating, again, when it's a puppy, we can often work around that eating problem. We can go along and swap out a bowl maybe. We can go along and put half the food in one bowl, half the food in the other bowl, and give it to it and go, but here's more food in this bowl. And let the dog eat a little bit there and then offer the other bowl. The dog then realizes that actually us being there actually gives it more food. It's a training technique that we can easily do to prevent dogs from being resource guarding around food. Supervising children and dogs at all times. I was dragged up in animal welfare. I think I was given to a dog more than likely when I first came home from the hospital in day one. And I've always been around dogs. And yes, I would think that my parents were a little bit unreasonable saying the dog would be fine with me. But I've been bitten because I've been stupid when I was a child. I wasn't understanding what the dog was going through. I would climb across my dogs and things like that. That's my parents' problem. I had to learn the hard way. We mustn't show children or people that dogs are bad. We just have to educate them that why would a dog defend itself because of our actions? So try and always be with the children and the dogs at the same time. Try and make sure that the child doesn't run up the dog, pull its ear, pull its tail, give it a kick, because children are like that, unfortunately. They haven't been trained and educated in the manner and the best way of animal welfare and best way of actually handling a dog. Never approaching unfamiliar dogs. How many times have we had our dog with us and somebody walks up and just pets the dog? What about asking the owner for permission before you touching the dog? And again, like we did last week, learn basic dog body language. So the signs that you might see, and I say might, before a dog bites, is growling, baring teeth, stiff body posture, whale eye. That's when you get a little bit of white in the eye. Freezing or backing away, tail tucked, or the tail could be rigid. There's a whole bunch of different signs that you can actually see when you're actually looking at a dog. And a lot of people might come along, and there's more than likely guys out there today saying, yeah, but I have never seen that kind of situation. What do you do in that situation? I'm saying to you is that we must be conscious about it. We mustn't always blame the dog. Look at it and go, maybe that dog has been telling people for the last 5 days, stay away. And we arrive. We never saw that. The dog doesn't know. We're all human. We all look alike. But listen for it. Watch that body posture. Look at those eyes. Are we stiff or are we relaxed? Where's that tail? If the tail is in a nice, calm, relaxed position, the dog should be able to be spoken to. I'm going to say go down, don't go across the top of the dog. Go down, wait for the dog to approach you. The dog approaches you, there's much less likelihood that the dog's going to be feeling threatened. But if the dog approaches you and walks away again, allow it to walk away. And these are the kind of things that we need to tell children and uninformed people. So, bottom line, fear. Remember that first poll that we did? Is it happy? Is it aggressive? Is it fearful? There it is. This is fear. This dog would definitely revert to a bite if the body posture language is ignored. And when you're looking at it, is that the dog's in a corner, purposely created this image so you could see it. And, you know, I've been working in shelters, veterinary clinics, all over the world, locally. And I often get asked by people, in fact, I got it yesterday, where I had to go and help the vets, which I'm really happy that they called me in to help them with a Great Dane. And the Great Dane was snappy to the staff. So they said to me, can I come along and handle this dog? So, of course, yes, no problem at all. I'll come and get the dog. I walk in and the dog is in a kennel in the clinic, in the hospital, in the veterinary hospital clinic. And only just then did I realize on how bad we are, and I'm talking generally, as with some knowledge, actually are accepting that the veterinary clinic that we design cages for have designed them in the situation where we place an animal that is scared, in pain, unfamiliar environment with an unfamiliar person, me, coming along, trying to put a lead, a collar, a control pole, a muzzle, or whatever you're using on the dog, and you don't expect the dog to react to it. This dog is in a kennel on the floor. I have to bend down to get it. It's a large dog. It's a fairly biggish kennel, but it's nothing that the dog can really move around in. So I'm asking people out there to think about this when you, as I say, if you ever do decide to design a new clinic, or if you actually do work in clinics or shelters or kennels, be aware that what we do to animals inadvertently, where we should know, is actually putting a lot more pressure on those dogs. I've got the Great Dane out, just to finish the story. Once it was out, well, then we were actually having a bit more space around the dog. The dog had been attacked by a monkey, so it had lacerations all over it and drains and things like that. The owner was away, so the owner doesn't even seen the dog. So the dog has been abandoned, according to it, being dragged into the hospital by somebody else. And now it has me working on it. We've had to muzzle it. We never wanted to sedate it because the dog was an older dog. It had been sedated the day before, so we didn't want to compromise it even more. And all the dog wanted to be was left alone. And eventually we cleaned the drains, took off the bandages and things like that. And I actually fed it just plain chicken to make it more comfortable with some medication in it that way. But that dog was absolutely petrified, stuck in a corner. But that's what we see here. It's simple fear. And how somebody didn't get bitten yesterday was remarkable. The dog really actually held back, didn't want to bite us. But we put that dog in that position. Bad thing for us. So let's have a quick look at this video. When somebody is holding a dog, don't just walk up to it and touch their dog without asking. Now the owner goes, oh, the dog's bitten somebody. Now we go along and go, oh, those dogs are aggressive. When we're making these videos, hopefully it is more demonstrative for anybody else and no animals or people were truly injured. But that to me is a very, very silly situation where people come along and go, it's okay, I like dogs. It's okay, I know dogs. I have dogs. That dog doesn't like you or doesn't know you. So why on earth would the dog accept it? But we as human beings just interact sometimes really stupidly. Pup. Dog snaps. And now more than likely, especially in this country, we have to insist that the dog's vaccination status is up to date, where's the vaccination cards and so on and so forth, where we've actually been the silly ones and not the owner. Here's another one that we set up, which I see quite frequently in dog parks, where especially youngsters, they will come along and see a new breed, a new dog, and they think it's great because they can play with their dogs. And in fact, these dogs have no idea what they're doing. So walking a dog, kid runs up, oh, hello, hello, hello. All of a sudden, the kid's on his back. We're strangling our dogs to try and rip them off the kid. For what? If you don't know the dog, stay away. If you want to say hello, by all means, call out to the owner. Can I approach? Can I say hello? If the owner says no, because that dog's going to jump on you, drop you onto the floor, bite you, whatever the story is, respect it. Walk away, thank them. And it happens so often where dogs get bad names because of somebody rushing up in a car park. And then the dog gets actually punished for someone else's bad behavior. Now, I didn't put a video on this one simply because I didn't want anybody being bitten. And as I said, in all the cases and all the videos that we have done, it actually has been in a safe environment with proper dogs. So if an aggressive dog does approach you, bottom line of it, stand still, keep quiet. Somebody asked a question last week, I think it was, is that, well, how will rolling in a ball maybe prevent a dog from biting you? Or how will it prevent the dog from biting you if you stand still and keep quiet? A lot of the time, a dog is interested in what you are or what you have. If you stand still, allow the dog's curiosity to work through it, the dog will leave you alone. If the dog sees you as no threat, the dog will leave you alone. If you're not being chased or if you're not moving, the dog will leave you alone because that predatory motor pattern doesn't fit the bill. But if you start shouting and moving and going crazy and screaming, the dog then gets very confused and it'll either do two things, a fight response or a flight response. And we don't want to take that chance if the dog is deciding to come and fight. So please, if you see a dog, you're not too sure, stand still and keep quiet. Allow the dog to come to you. It's okay. If the dog even touches you, it's okay. All they're doing is they're sniffing. They're trying to figure out what's happening. The dog will leave you, and then you carry on walking down the road. Just watch that again. He sees the dog, he comes stationary. And the dog looks at the person, gets disinterested, and finally leaves. And we can also train multiple people in the same circumstances. These kids just finished a bit of lunch, walking down the road, and all of a sudden one of them spots a very aggressive looking dog. One guy who's been educated takes control, places the bag on the floor, and rather walks back slowly. The dog just wants to investigate. Nothing interesting, the dog will leave you. But what happens if the dog actually does attack you? Use a bag, a jacket, or an object as a barrier. As we said, in the bicycle, as the jacket, as the bag. Give it to the dog. It's much better than giving your arm to the dog. What happens if the dog does knock you down or you trip? Pull into a ball if you're knocked over. Keep quiet. Protect your face, neck, and chest, most important parts of your body. And definitely avoid screaming or throwing your arms around. It's unbelievable how people go into a panic mode. And I know it's easy for me to say this. Just stand still, keep quiet. When a big dog has done it, is coming towards you. But I'm telling you, I've had it a number of times where I've walked into villages that I am definitely a stranger, no doubt about it. When I walk into a village in Europe, in Asia or in Africa, I am definitely the odd one out, okay? Those dogs have no idea what I am. And I'm still standing today with a lot less bites. So there's another one where single child walking along sees the dog. He rather walks back. The dog still threatens him, but he keeps moving back quietly and calmly and slowly. The dog then sees that. If you notice where the child is, he's stepped aside So we're not sitting around looking at the dog. He actually disappears if he can. He hasn't turned around and run off. That will elicit that predatory motor pattern and chase behavior. But he's just moved off quietly and allowed the dog to do its thing with the bag. The dog leaves and everybody is safe. The dog sees that bag and has a scent to it, and it actually works a lot better. I use my hat a lot. And if you, as I say, I often wear a hat. I don't know if you still see me, but this hat has saved my hands over and over and over again. I take it off, I offer it to the dog. I have had a dog rip it out my hands and rip it to pieces. Well, that's a lot better than my hand has been ripped to pieces. So we often use that. If you've got a jacket, you can use the same scenario. We showed this video last week, but again, if you do get chased by a dog and you trip, roll into a ball, protect yourself. Maybe the dog still might go along and bite, maybe, correct. But it's not going to savage you. It's going to look at you and go, no, I don't know what else to do now. And most likely it'll leave you alone. But just hold your ground. So safety measures during and after an attack. Stay calm, move to a safe location where possible. Avoid separating dogs with bare hands if you're involved in a fight. Wash any wounds with soap and running water immediately. Go to your nearest clinic or doctor for further medical treatment. But stay calm and move to a safe location. Okay, like that young boy did. Separating dogs with bare hands. So many times people will phone me up and they go, we've got a problem now because we've had a dog fight at home and you know, my husband was bitten badly. So I go, well, did he try and grab the dogs and separate them? Yes. Well, sorry, but you put your hand in the way and you started fighting the dogs. If you're worried and you're not able to separate dogs, rather walk away. It sounds sad, bad for animal welfare, no questions at all. But if you can, make a noise, use water if you have to, if you've got it, use something else, but besides your hands. A lot of people try and grab the dog's head, open its mouth, whatever like that. You're just asking for injury. Please be very, very careful. Wash your wounds with soap and running water. And this is where a lot of the time we often fail. Where we put a hand in our bucket and we wash it, as opposed to actually getting running water and washing it vigorously. Believe it or not, according to the World Health Organization, if you were bitten by a dog and you suspect rabies or suspect rabid dog, and you wash that wound correctly, running water for 15 minutes with some soap, you could remove up to 80% chance of you getting rabies. So why don't we do it properly? I know we're still going to go to treatment and get vaccinated and things like that, but why don't we do a good job in the beginning? Is it painful? Yes, potentially it is. But if you do it properly, you can actually make a big, big difference to that person's life, whoever's been bitten. So dog bite, do not put it into a bucket, okay? Get running water. Wash it with running water. If you've got soap, use soap. But wash it extensively and immediately. So we've now gone through a whole bunch of things saying, okay, well, what can we do to prevent dog bites? But hold on a minute, that's with the dog. What about a school education program? What about promoting dog vaccinations? Now, a lot of you are going to go, yes, but a vaccinating dog is not actually a dog that's going to stop biting. Well, actually, I disagree. If we promote dog vaccinations, we're promoting proper ownership, responsible ownership. And by proper responsible ownership, the dogs are actually becoming more sociable, and therefore they're becoming more tolerant of people. So a proper good dog vaccination campaign in communities over time will actually change people's attitude, dogs' attitude, reduce dog bites. And this could be all through school education programs. What about humane handling and sterilization programs? As I've said before just now, is that sterilization could potentially reduce dog aggression because we're not protecting females, we're not protecting puppies. We're also improving animal welfare. Safe spaces for dogs and people. If you like dogs, take them to the park. In one of our parks that we run our dogs in, it's a very large open area, and slap bang in the middle of it, there's actually a jungle gym and places where the kids can play. But that is actually being fenced off. So no dogs are allowed in there when children are playing. That to me is responsible. So the dogs have got free rein around this whole park area for the kids. But the kids are safe. It's better. Positive messaging about dogs in communities. Think about it. Think about what I've just said. So why are you thinking of that? School education. We teach them rabies. Teach them bite prevention. We teach them animal welfare. Good communities have good, healthy dogs. Healthy dogs actually less bites because they are content. We run education programs like this all over the place. I'm actually going to Mozambique this weekend to go and do, I think it's 5 schools on just these 3 simple topics. And it's easy. It's simple. It is short notices, 20 minutes at a time. Primary healthcare, vaccination prevents diseases. Some people might disagree, but vaccines save lives. Sterilization prevents diseases, suffering, dog bites, and creates healthier animals. If anybody else there disagrees with me, you're wrong. I know I'm being a bit bold by saying that. But I've seen this over and over again in different parts of the world, is that good vaccination status reduces rabies, reduces aggression, and hopefully prevents dog bites. Sterilization definitely prevents dog bites because the dog does not have to protect itself, its litters, and other mates. Now, I ask you to think about positive messaging. What if you come along and you say to the child, oh, no, every dog has rabies, because that's a common comment. Every dog has rabies, where it doesn't. Dogs get rabies. We're trying to prevent it through vaccinations. If we come along and say, dogs are nice, if we are nice, dogs could be the best thing out, dogs are man's best friend, have a positive messaging, it starts changing people's perception. I was in a country once when they said to me, the dogs in this country only want to kill us. Because of that perception, we need to change that perception by having a positive message. There's in our story, and I don't know if you actually do know this, but in Istanbul, I took that photograph many years ago. I was on a conference about companion animals. But in Istanbul, the municipality and the government actually vaccinate, sterilize, and return the dogs back to their original location where they were caught in the city. 3,500 dogs run around the city. They are sterilized, they are vaccinated, they are fed, they're provided shelter. Okay, great public awareness. And a lot of people come along, but hold on a minute, why Istanbul? I thought it was, religious beliefs that dogs are dirty. No, that's the blue moss behind that dog. Okay. It's a different mindset. It's caring for the individual dog. If we remove all those dogs, we open a void up for other animals to come in. Now we don't have disease control. It's a great way of looking at it. So it's to ensure public safety, to reduce rabies risk, reduce disease risks, and protect animal welfare. Again, vaccinated dogs, safer dogs. Sterilized dogs are calmer behavior dogs. Familiar dogs, fewer fear-based bites. People understand, oh, it's the same dog that I saw yesterday, or it's the same dog that walks around my neighborhood, but it's safe, it's sterilized, it's vaccinated. Informed communities, safer interactions. So coexistence and compassion reduces bites. Istanbul proves it works. Jodhpur in India reported a 70% reduction in dog bite instances. Yes, it was over a period of time, but reported 70% reduction because they did the same thing that Istanbul was doing in a set area of India. A lot of you might not know where this place is, but Ilia of Mozambique, or island of Mozambique. It's a very, very small little section just off the coast. In fact, 3.4 kilometers off the coast. And a lady there decided that she liked the area, so she moved into this little island from Italy. And she liked it. Then she realized there was a lot of dogs on the island, lots of dogs. So because she's caring, she decided to start an organization, employ a vet, and 2 local people. She started sterilizing all the dogs, vaccinating them. I went up to help her catch a whole bunch of them. And what she did once they were sterilized, she put on some very, very nice beaded collars like you find in Kenya. And she put out a message to say, those collars represent a safe dog. We then went back into at the clinic where all the bite instances had been reported. And she realized that because she had sterilized these dogs and changed the attitude or the positive messaging about the dog, the bite instances reduced. One lady started it. So today's summary key points. Most bites are preventable. We need to read warning signs early. We need to teach children how to act safely. And community programs reduce risk long term. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've heard, I've hoped you understand, and I hope you really come along and go, wow, good thought-provoking stuff. Because we have a session next week on human behavior and how it is connected to dog reactions. I do hope that you're going to register for that. I thank you very much for listening, and I hope we have a lot of questions. Over to you, Karenza. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was very informative and very, very interesting. I can see loads of reactions from people, thumbs up and hearts and clapping. So I think the general consensus is that they enjoyed it. There's also been a lot of activity on social media. You've been online in Instagram stories while you've been presenting. And yes, be careful what you wish for, because we've got quite a few questions already. I'll be cheeky in one way, but then again, I was the first to post the question, and I'll ask one that came to mind for me in your example of the boy on the bicycle. And I was just wondering, would it help in that situation when he stops and gets off the bicycle, uses the bicycle as a barrier between him and the dogs? Would it help if he looked away from rather than directly at the dogs and tried some calming signals like yawning or licking his lips? Or do you think in that kind of case it wouldn't make that much difference?
No, I think it's a very good question. I think it's an important one. And yes, if the child was educated better on how to suppress the aggression, okay, I think it would help. I know that I've done it a number of times where I've been leaning down, going down on my one knee, dog has come over me and threatened me. And what I've done is I've turned away, I've licked my lips, I've lowered myself slightly and just breathed slower, and then the dog walks away. So I have been offering appeasing behavior to that dog and the dog has responded correctly. If I had jumped up, screamed, shouted, or even stared at the dog, I think I would have been in a lot more conflict with the dog. So yes, I do believe so. But again, it's through education.
Yeah.
You know, and if we can get proper education out there, I think that would work.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Chris from Malta SPCA is asking, does resource guarding, in your opinion, stem from fear or frustration? I ask because I can see why it is often said to be a fear of an anticipated loss, but sharing when you don't want to share, in my lived experience, is frustrating more than anything else. Losing resources is frustrating more than anything else.
So, yes, and also depending on what the dog is actually resourcing. If we're in a rural setting, for instance, free roaming dogs, and they don't get fed, where I've come across those type of dogs, and they have to find. So dogs are generally scavengers, and they will then find something. And if it's that finding is a high value resource, then it's worth everything that the dog has got at that particular moment. So is it fear? Is it frustration? I think it is just, you could use certainly those words. And I do think that those mood states could change into those emotions. But it could be an exciting, I found this, and I'm going to keep it. Okay. Or alternatively, losing something that is a potential predicted outcome, is that with our own animals, we must train them that there will always be available for them. So they don't ever have to worry about not going hungry or not having that food. But when you've got an animal which is in a free roaming area scavenging, that has got no ability to actually understand that there'll always be food there, they will protect it out of fear of loss because of their own requirements. But from a pet point of view, we need to train that dog to realize that actually you don't have to protect your food. There will always be food available. I hope that answers your first question, Chris.
Thank you. Chari has copied a question from Dr. Isma. If a dog runs towards us aggressively, it's not easy to be quiet. Do you think it's not risky trying to remain quiet in this case? Is it sure that the dog will stop its attack?
Yeah. So and it's a difficult one to really answer, because yes, in my opinion, keep quiet, keep still. Okay. I have pushed a lot of cases where dogs have tried to attack me, and I've tried it both. I've tried to stand still. I have backed into a wall, so I'm protected from back. You know, I don't have to keep spinning around because I don't want to move, and I've kept quiet. Dogs have come along, they've nose punched me to try and get a reaction. I've kept quiet, kept still. Dogs have moved away. I've also stepped forward and said something to the dogs and said no, or shouted, or tried to get them away. That in itself has actually now stemmed a bigger excitement stimulus. And that there could also be a further chance of the animal staying in that aroused state. So it's not, I can't say to you exactly, oh, well, this is the only way we're going to do this. As I said to you in the beginning of the presentation, we have to assess it. But for most cases, standing still, keeping quiet, the dog will move away. If you walk onto someone's property and the dog is protecting its property, it's going to think twice about just whoever this this stranger is, this intruder is. That's a different situation. But if you're on the street and the dog rushes out and you stand still, I'm going to say that's the best option.
Yeah, there's a reason why dogs love squeaky toys, right?
Yes, correct. They love it because they make a lot of noise, you know. But then again, I think someone just mentioned in the chat about also what our body language is. We can keep quiet. But if I keep quiet and look at the dog like that, that's also potentially going to cause the dog some kind of a stress, and it's a threat to the dog. So become neutral as such.
Yeah, and uninteresting basically for the dog.
Correct.
Okay, now we have two questions from Jenny, but they're both to do with recommendations that you may have. The one is for better design of dog cages and kennels for the safety of people, but also the better welfare of the dogs. And the other one, which I'm not sure whether you have something in mind, is about good community-wide education strategies beyond school education.
Yeah, I think oops. Sorry, I just lost you. I touched my screen.
Oh, we're still here. This,
Okay,
I
good.
think your
Sorry.
screen share is
Okay.
minimized. Yeah.
So the question about the veterinary clinic stuff is that I think that we need to be practical, but also very conscious if we are developing something. And a lot of the time, it'll be ideal if we could have I'm going to call it a run area behind the kennel blocks. So, and the dog can be easily opened up and allowed to move into a bigger area, and you'll be able to interact with the dog better there. And as opposed to just a smaller confined area. But again, it's a practical scenario where most veterinary clinics don't have the space. I was in Ohio State University, where they had some very, very nice open areas where the dogs could actually escape to, and then the handlers would be able to approach the dog and, I'm going to say, negotiate in a bit bigger, more open area. The second question or comment of how we can develop it for community is, we are trying something at the moment going through schools. In our school system, and I do not have children, so I don't understand how it works, but they also have parent to teacher direct communication. So through WhatsApp groups and things like that. And we're trying to get messages that are sent on that platform. That's number one. Okay. So we can send out messages to parents to say, hey guys, remember to tell your kid not to do this or to do this. Okay. And it'll be small little single lines to the parents of the teachers, parents of the pupils of the school. But because we've also just been into those schools and educated them at the school, so it's a different level. It's not just talking to the kids, we're also talking to the parents. Then at the same time is that often we have around the world, we actually have community carers or community involved people, and that them bringing community members to a single meeting. We're looking at doing education at that level. All right. So we could use that. What a lot of the times where I've been working with them, I say to them, what about churches? People are congregated and they are a collective audience. Can we not negotiate with the church, the priest, the mufti, whoever is putting the sermon on, to be able to actually go along and give a 5 to 10 minute talk before the sermon? Why not? We're saving people's lives. It's not just simply coming along and selling a concept. We're not trying to, sell petrol to the Arabs. No, we're not. We are there saving people's lives. So why is it not important to a school, a community, a church? And then, of course, there's social media. And I know we'll always have banter backwards and forwards from social media. Are you talking rubbish and this? We have to be bigger than that. We have to be able to still put out the message. And I'm telling you now, the message is not just from a single group like us through Global Alliance for Rabies Control. We are talking a number of different organizations. We all talk the same language, and therefore we are able to actually say what we're saying is correct, and we all got a very good backing from behind it. So there's another suggestion.
Thank you.
I get
That's
passionate
brilliant.
about it. I get really passionate about it.
Couldn't tell. Okay, so we have one. Why should we not just tell people to always avoid all dogs?
Because dogs are nice. Okay. And if you're looking at that side of it, is that If we avoid all dogs, we then start having this mindset that all dogs are bad. Why are we avoiding them? Well, because there must be something wrong with them. And if we start doing that, we then start creating a negative, I'm going to call it energy. That might be a little bit too holistic, but that attitude of, no, we must just stay away. It's the unknown. It's the negative. But if we start changing it around to saying, well, actually dogs are nice, but if we want to approach, we approach correctly. You know, if, for instance, I walked into a group of people or even to a restaurant where it's full, and I walk in and I start making a lot of noise and I'm screaming at the guy on the other side who I do not know, I'm just being rude, right? But if I walk across to his table, ask for a seat, may I sit down, I'd like to have a cup of coffee with you, that changes the guy's perception on how and who I am. He'll be open up to that. But if we do the same thing with the dogs by being absolutely rude and just pushing them all away all the time, we will never be able to understand that dogs are actually man's best friend and they are good things to be around. They do a lot of good for us. We do a lot of good for them, or we can do a lot of good for them. So in my opinion, no, don't avoid every single dog. Just be nice and be polite. Okay.
I've now got a slightly longer one.
Sure.
So there are some studies on sterilization, and often the physical and behavioral effects are unpredictable. I know in many countries it is beneficial to control population, but can it be detrimental? Also, if we think about it on a macro level, the dogs with friendlier traits are more likely to be sterilized as they can be approached by humans. So are we inadvertently aiding more aggressive dogs to breed as opposed to more docile dogs? I'm not really sure this is in your remit, but feel free to.
So it's a good question. And I like your in-depth concept about selective breeding and so on and so forth. However, yes, we certainly do breed for certain traits, and aggression is one of them. And if we get the wrong dog, we could definitely mess up the gene pool going along. However, it is not the fact of us only sterilizing the pleasant dogs. It's also looking at, if we're going to control population, we need to be able to learn on how to actually approach those potential problem dogs. We have in the past, and we really do not want to cover this here, is that, you know, a lot of times we come along and a lot of countries, and I think I saw it in the chat just now that Istanbul is changing it, possibly going to start culling dogs. Now that's very, very sad. So by removing the problem dogs, the individual problem dog, that might be a solution. I'm only saying might. And we then sterilize a whole bunch of good dogs, but keep them around. We then slowly, over generations, we actually start changing people and dogs' opinions of what each other is, what those species are like. And we can start living in a social environment with everybody. But if we only keep the aggressive and then people start getting bitten, they will then start realizing generationally that all dogs are bad. But if we start reducing not necessarily just population, but also the behavioral traits that causes some dog bites, such as breeding, protection, things like that, we're going to change people's opinion on dogs. So I do think it's a very, very open-ended question. I love it, absolutely love it. But I think there's a lot of different assets or facets to the answer. And I do think we should look at the community, the individual environment, and the size of the population before we go along and make those kind of decisions where we only sterilize one or the other categorized dogs.
Thank you. Yes, a very complex issue. A question on direct touching. So can we touch the dog's head directly once they get acquainted with us? I heard this should not be done in a recent session.
So once, and I think there's a thing in the recent session was don't just walk up to a dog and pat it on its head. Okay, it doesn't like it. You won't like it. The dog doesn't like it either. Even if it is a friendly dog, it still won't like it. In the previous session, we mentioned about going down, asking the dog to come to us, and we start actually working from underneath the dog. And it's a very, very gentle touch. The dog walks into our hand as opposed to us doing that onto the dog. Once the dog is used to us and is accepting, yes, absolutely. If the dog accepts it, we can do it. What I want you to make sure is that the dog is actually accepting it. And I think that's where now we're reading body language to be able to see if the dog does accept a touch on the head. Don't ever bang your dog on the head. This is not nice.
Yeah, I don't think we would like that. And there's a difference between accepting and tolerating.
Yeah.
Okay, another one. Even when we're asked, should we allow humans who are scared of dogs to approach and get acquainted with our dogs, just because they are likely not able to stay neutral or because they may also panic?
It's a good question, because in my opinion, if we can change those people's attitude and mindsets and ideas, we're going to give them a better experiences. Okay, I've met a number of people that are absolutely petrified of dogs, and I ask them why, and most of the times because they were bitten as a child, and these are adults. And over time, they have now gone, oh, wow, dogs are not bad. Dogs are okay. In fact, even, somebody might even bring them into the home, and that we find the right breed of dogs for that kind of a person. And then they become advocates for the humane handling and living with dogs. I remember I was in Cambodia, and we had I think it was a Chinese lady who was helping us with a campaign, but she was there on education through a training course that we're putting on. And she was absolutely petrified of dogs. And we were in the field, and she would just be stuck with me like in my pocket. Okay. And by the end of that week that we had her in the field, she was actually engaging with the dogs and touching them and marking them once we vaccinated them. And it was just so nice to see. So do we keep all people that are scared away from dogs? I don't believe so. But I do believe we need to help them to understand that dogs are actually nice and can be interacted with positively if we show them correctly.
As a comment to that, I don't know if this is right or not, and you're probably the best judge of that, but in my experience, when I've been in schools and things where we had, for example, guide dogs that children could touch a little bit and pet and things and get familiar with, when we had a child that was scared, we'd have the dog lying down, completely relaxed. And what we would normally do is have the child's hand on, like my hand, for example, and I would be stroking the dog. And only when the child, for example, maybe felt comfortable, I would gradually take my hand away and the child would be stroking the dog. And then that would slowly instill a certain level of confidence in that child. But of course, this was, with a guide dog that had been trained for 2 years as a puppy and socialized and, it was just perfect. So different situations, but it could help in certain cases.
No, absolutely, Corinne. I think that's a very good point, is that we need to help. Often if I'm in an area where I don't even know the dog, but the dog seems to be friendly, I will always place my hand on the dog's chest, on its rib cage, very, very gently, while somebody else touches it. Because I can most likely feel a muscle tension coming across the rib cage, and therefore I will then take the person's hand away from the dog. Because I can feel it. If you are able to do that. But by allowing me, or saying to somebody, no, it's okay, don't be scared of them, don't be silly, just go and touch the dog, I think we're being very irresponsible. We need to encourage and help those people that are fearful to actually start comprehending why they're scared. Let's remove that fear from them, and then they will also have a better life.
Yeah, Yeah, and it's also not, you don't want to be dismissive of their fear. It's something that they
Correct.
feel that it's very real. Just like when somebody says to you, oh, don't worry. And then the first thing you're going to do is worry, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, a nice question. From your experience in dog parks, how often do you see bites, real, not play, or fights between dogs? And to your knowledge, what's the most common reason they occur?
Oh, do you think the question is through dogs and dogs or dogs on people?
I would take it as dogs and dogs, but
Okay,
I'm happy for you to answer both if you want.
thanks. Dogs and dogs, we certainly do see it, and I would think it's a fairly low percentage, 5 to 10%. What's causing the problem is because those dogs that are frequent visitors to the park, they are relaxed, they're calm, they relax, everything's great, and they think that every other dog that comes there is their friend, okay? But then the new owner to the block brings their dog because they just heard of the park, and they release their dog because they see everybody else is there, and therefore it's a irresponsible or unknowledgeable owner that has allowed their dog to run in. And often what actually is causing the bite is that it's an over burdened on the new dog, and the dog is defending itself because out of fear, because it had no idea that all these dogs were going to come and rush across to it. And often that happens is that the dog makes a sound, that squeaky toy, didn't shut up. It's tried to run back to the owner, predatory motor pattern. As the dogs get to it, it responds. It's a fight response, okay? And therefore someone's going to retaliate or just get bitten. So instead of us doing that, if you're going to go take your dog to a park, make sure your dog is a very well sociable dog. I would, in the beginning, walk around, don't just let your dog loose, and make sure that you introduce your dog to other dogs and to the environment. And then we slowly build it up. Don't just go and throw your dog into the mix of a whole bunch of dogs that you do not know. That's what's going to cause the problem. From a person point of view, I think it's less, because most people that are in a dog park are actually dog people, and you might come along and get one or two little nips, but certainly I've never really known about severe bites on people in a dog park.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think one last question, and then any questions we haven't answered live, we'll try to do so in writing for everyone. Isn't it still accepted that in an already insecure F1 or F2 male, or an already poorly inhibited M1 or M2 female, sterilization can trigger or worsen aggression?
If that is the case, it's an individual case. It is not a general consensus about sterilizing population management across a village. In that circumstances, and we've had this a couple of times through behavior modification, where I come on, why have we not sterilized the dog? What is the vet seen? What's this? It's simply because a lot of the time with those animals that they are actually not confident. And they are working in a fear mood permanently. So by us sterilizing them, taking away those hormones, the dog actually then starts becoming more withdrawn and more fearful. And yes, then it will increase. But we must not look at it saying, oh, so every dog's going to have that. No, it's not. We are talking individual cases. And if that's the scenario, then a very good behavior modification, dog training exercises for that dog might carry on for a couple of 3 or 4 months, building that dog's confidence up. Then we'll be able to sterilize the dog, and the dog will live a normal, happy life if we see it from the beginning. And I have seen it. I've certainly have seen it. I look at it, primarily male dogs, and we say, well, hold on. We've got full control over the dog. It's not going to be running the streets, breeding with everything. Let's work with the dog. Let's build its confidence up. Let's give it a lot of circumstances where we should have done this when it was a young puppy, but we've maybe missed that critical socializing period. or we've rewarded it incorrectly in the fear stage, development stage, or avoidance development stage of its life. And now it's a learned behavior. So we have to unlearn it, rewire its brain, and get those transmitters working correctly. And then we would sterilize that dog.
I don't envy you. I know it's past. I was just wondering, we have one last question that seems to be quite important for most places. Could we just squeeze that in quickly and then wrap up? Yeah. What is the percentage risk when you come across an aggressive dog, take the rock position, and the dog still attack anyway?
Good question. And I'll be honest with you, I would think, and genuinely, if you really want my honest answer, is that I would think a single bite would be frequent, okay? Or a scratch. So in other words, it's not necessarily a bite, but the dog has pawed the person to try and get a response from somebody, then leave. An attack, meaning category 4 bites, end up in hospital, I would think it's actually very low. But again, everything is out of a different parameter. You know, if we're looking at it from a far different way, yes, it happens. But also looking on the extreme side of it, it also doesn't happen. So there are certain times when that has happened, and I've seen it on videos and experienced it with other people, that there's certain breeds that enjoy biting people. Okay, so yes, they will bite, but invariably, if you keep dead still, this is really difficult. The dog will only bite you once because it'll grab hold of you and hang on to you. Won't know what else to do. When there's multiple dogs, it becomes more of a problem. But yes, it will happen. Okay, but the general consensus, please, let's educate kids. Shut up, keep still when you're around dogs. Okay.
Super. Thank you very much, Daniel. So another very valuable session. I think everyone enjoyed it, and we have some excellent information to work with. Thank you again to Battersea, and of course to Chari, who has been on the back end of everything on the tech side. Chari, again, I don't know if you want to say hello and goodbye to everyone. As a reminder, this was the second of 3 webinars. The last one, third and last one, hi Chari. The third and last one is next Thursday, 24th of July, 12 p.m. Central European time. I'm just noting that again because I think we had a few people logging on an hour early today. We'll discuss preventing dog bites in real-world community settings, and also a lot about puppies and how we can start early monitoring and changing our behavior as well. You need to register separately for each session. So if you haven't already, I'll post the link in the chat shortly. Please register for the last session. We look forward to seeing you all there again. Daniel, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a great session. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.